A single dad janitor slept quietly in Row 10, the hum of the airplane vibrating beneath him, the soft murmur of passengers like a distant river lulling him into a rare deep sleep. His worn uniform still smelled faintly of cleaning solutions, and the faint scent of his son clinging to him from last night, the memories of bedtime stories and scraped knees floating in his mind. He dreamed of nothing at first, just the simple quiet peace that he rarely found in his life of endless shifts and half-finished repairs of classrooms and hallways. Now the cabin lights dimmed, and he shifted in his seat, a small hand pressed against the aisle. As he turned slightly, the captain's voice cut through the lull like lightning striking a calm lake. Any combat pilots on board? Any combat pilots on board? His eyes snapped open, heart hammering, the words echoing in his mind like a drumbeat. He had hoped to forget that life, that world of sharp reflexes and disciplined courage, and yet here it was, calling him back, a half-remembered past of roaring engines and the smell of jet fuel, a past he had buried under mop handles and floor polish. For the sake of his son, he swallowed hard, glanced around at the oblivious travelers, children with headphones, parents dozing, magazines fluttering in laps, and the casual oblivion of the unprepared, and he felt the weight of responsibility press against his chest. He had left that world for this one, this life of quiet sacrifices and invisible labor, and yet now there was no choice, no running, no hiding from what he had been trained to do, what he had sworn to forget. He pushed himself upright a little stiffly, his knees complaining from hours of standing and bending, but his body remembered the rhythm. His hands shook slightly as he straightened his jacket, tucked the mop of his dark hair behind his ears, the seatbelt clicking softly against his side. He stood and raised his hand, a small motion, but a signal of readiness, and sudden fear and determination mingled in his chest. The passengers turned their heads in unison, a few eyebrows raised, whispers fluttering like frightened birds in the cabin. Flight attendants exchanged glances, uncertainty painted across their faces. The captain repeated the question a little louder. Any combat pilots on board? We need immediate assistance. And in that moment, the janitor remembered his call signs, his squadron, his missions, the nights spent chasing shadows over deserts and oceans, the long, lonely stretches of sky where life and death hung by threads thinner than spider silk. He felt the adrenaline that had once coursed through him surge and settle in his veins, a calm fury, a readiness that only those trained for survival could know. He stood straighter, adjusted his shoes as if that small gesture could prepare him for the ordeal ahead. He approached the flight deck, the soft carpet muffling his steps, his uniform now an unexpected symbol of hidden skill and forgotten valor. The flight attendants whispered a thank you. He nodded a brief acknowledgement and stepped into the small cockpit where the captain and co-pilot turned, eyes wide with hope and fear. The cockpit smelled of electronics and recycled air, a faint hum of warning lights, and the low vibration of the engines beneath the floorboards. His eyes scanned the controls, switches, levers, and dials, each one a language he had once spoken fluently. A language that had kept him alive more times than he could count. He remembered the acronyms, the procedures, the drills that had become muscle memory. Now under pressure, his hands moved instinctively across the panel, confirming fuel lines, checking hydraulics, scanning screens and gauges. The captain looked at him with relief, and fear etched across his face, saying, "We don't know if we can land safely. We lost both engines. Turbulence is getting worse." And the janitor nodded quietly, more to himself than to anyone else. He could feel his son in his mind, the little boy who had looked up at him with trust, the boy who had relied on him to keep everything safe. He could not fail. He would not fail. He adjusted the throttle, felt the vibration through his palms, felt the plane shudder slightly, and remembered the lessons drilled into him over years of flying combat missions over deserts, mountains, oceans, and cities under fire. Every calculation, every judgment, every split second had mattered, and now every second mattered again. He took a deep breath, or at least he imagined breathing deeply. The cabin beyond the cockpit wall, a muted chaos of murmurs and sudden movement. Passengers sensing something wrong, the co-pilot followed his gaze. The young man whose hands shook slightly with inexperience, and yet he trusted the janitor implicitly, as if some instinct recognized the skill that lay hidden beneath a lifetime of unassuming labor. The janitor spoke softly words of guidance, instructions that rolled off his tongue with the ease of someone who had once danced with death and returned unscathed. Check the hydraulics again, confirm the pressure gauges, stay calm, repeat the steps, and we will get through this. The captain exhaled a long, shaky breath, gratitude mingled with disbelief that a man who had seemed so ordinary had become the axis of survival. The plane rocked violently, turbulence hammering against the fuselage, alarms screaming and blinking in a cacophony that would have frozen any ordinary passenger. But he was not ordinary, not anymore. He felt the past and the present converge in the cramped space, the sweat running down his neck reminding him of the hot desert sun, the smell of gunpowder and jet fuel, the cold wine slicing across the altitude above the clouds, all merging into one clear imperative: survive. The plane groaned, the engines sputtered and flickered, the lights of warning danced across the panels. He adjusted the rudder with precise motions, his mind calculating angles, trajectories, speeds, distances, obstacles that no one else could even perceive. The co-pilot mimicked his movements, hands trembling on the yoke as he followed the instructions, each adjustment a tiny victory, each stabilized moment a lifeline. He felt the cabin crew pressing against the door from the other side, their eyes wide, mouths opening and closing silently, the passengers bracing themselves, a collective heartbeat suspended in time. He could hear echoes of laughter and tears from missions past, friends lost, enemies defeated, all coalescing into an unwavering focus. The flight deck became a small universe in which only action mattered and fear was a tool, not a master. The janitor shifted slightly, his knees aching, his back stiff, but the motions had become reflexive again, the plane banking slightly. He adjusted the flaps, the altitude stabilized, a little turbulence still rocking, but manageable. He felt the calm certainty settle in his chest, the kind of calm that comes only after countless hours of discipline and training, a calm that could guide hundreds of lives safely across the sky. The co-pilot exhaled slowly, glancing at him with a mixture of awe and gratitude. Outside, the clouds churned like painted storms, lightning occasionally slicing across the horizon, illuminating the vast emptiness beyond the windows, a reminder of the fragility of metal and human ingenuity against nature. The janitor traced mental maps of wind currents and air pressure, adjusting subtly, nudging the plane to ride the invisible rivers of air. The fuel was low, the route uncertain, but the instincts honed from a lifetime of combat told him where to steer, how to react, what to anticipate. His hands danced across controls, switches, levers, dials, all responding as if recognizing the touch of a master pilot, long dormant yet never forgotten. A small shiver of anticipation ran through him, a whisper of the old adrenaline, the thrill of life hanging by threads thinner than spider silk. He forced himself to remember why he had left this world, why he had chosen mop buckets and janitor carts over cockpits and missions, yet now necessity demanded he return, even if briefly, for the sake of the hundreds of lives relying on him for survival. His thoughts flickered to his son, who had begged him not to go to work, so tired. The boy had said, "Please come back safely, please come back," and now every instruction, every flick of a switch, every turn of a dial became a silent promise to the little boy to return safely to him. Hours seemed to stretch like days outside. The storms intensified, thunder rolling across the sky, the plane shaking violently, alarms screaming again and again. The co-pilot followed every instruction, mimicking every movement, the captain monitoring instruments, exhaling and adjusting along with him. The janitor felt a surge of familiar focus, his mind splitting into fractions of seconds, measuring distances, velocity, angles, calculating every potential threat to survival, simultaneously recalling every drill, every emergency, every maneuver he had ever been taught. He whispered quietly to himself, "Remember, remember, react, adapt, survive." The plane tilted dangerously. He adjusted slowly, carefully, the wings slicing through the turbulence as if cutting the fabric of the storm itself. Passengers beyond the cockpit wall braced for impact, unaware that a hidden hero guided them through the invisible threats, a single man who had long ago given up The glory of combat to embrace, the quiet heroism of fatherhood now wielded both worlds in one extraordinary act of courage. The plane groaned under the strain of the storm, wings flexing and twisting as if they might tear free at any moment, the hum of engines sputtering and coughing, warnings flashing incessantly, lights casting eerie shadows across the cockpit walls. The janitor's hands moved over the controls with precision, guided by instinct and memory, his heart hammering not with fear but with intense focus, every nerve alive, every thought directed toward keeping the plane aloft. The co-pilot mirrored his movements, hands shaking slightly but following faithfully every instruction, as if the janitor's presence alone could bend the rules of physics and fate to their will. Outside the windows the storm raged, clouds churning like angry seas, lightning flashing, illuminating fleeting glimpses of the horizon, the turbulence relentless, tossing the plane like a toy in a cruel game of chance. Passengers gripped their armrests, knuckles, white eyes, wide faces pale, some whispering prayers, some silent tears, unaware of the man in Row 10 whose quiet life of janitorial labor had prepared him in ways no classroom or office could have ever done. Could feel the strain in the metal under his fingertips, the vibrations running through the floorboards into his feet, the subtle shudders that hinted at deeper problems hidden beneath the mechanical symphony of the plane, every warning light a note in a deadly orchestra. He moved with careful urgency, checking instruments, recalculating trajectories, adjusting flaps, throttle, rudder, scanning the screens for anomalies, his mind compartmentalizing everything into clear, actionable steps. No hesitation, no panic, just precise control honed by years of life and death experiences. His thoughts flickered to his son again, the boy waiting for him somewhere miles away, the image of his small hand gripping his own at bedtime, stories whispered into the night, giving comfort and love, the reason for every choice, every sacrifice made, and now the very reason he could not allow himself to fail, not for the crew, not for the passengers, not even for the plane itself, but for the small boy who believed his father could fix anything and keep him safe. The turbulence intensified, the plane rocking violently, alarms screaming over the cockpit speakers, the captain muttering under his breath to close, to stall, to high, to fast. The janitor absorbed the information, instantly adjusting altitude, banking slightly to catch a pocket of stable air, monitoring fuel levels and calculating descent trajectory. He could feel the sweat running down his spine, soaking the back of his uniform, but his hands moved without hesitation, each action deliberate, controlled, every motion a testament to years of discipline hidden beneath years of ordinary life. He glanced at the co-pilot, nodding silently, encouraging him to stay steady, to trust instincts, to remember training, to let muscle memory guide. Even as fear clawed at the edges of his consciousness, the cockpit became a world of its own, a bubble separated from chaos, a crucible of focus and survival, every decision a matter of life and death. Outside the storm continued its wrath, wind tearing against the fuselage, rain lashing the windows, lightning painting everything in stark white flashes, the plane quivering under each gust and sudden jolt. The janitor felt his pulse sink with the vibrations of the engines, the vibrations of the plane, the rhythm of survival embedded deep within him, a dance he had danced countless times before, a deadly choreography that now played out in front of a terrified audience. Passengers gripping seats, whispering silently, murmuring prayers, some screaming, some frozen in disbelief, unaware that salvation was guiding them from Row 10, a man who had traded glory for quiet life, now wielding both worlds in one extraordinary act of courage and focus. He adjusted the flaps again, checking the instruments, cross-referencing wind, speed, angles, descent calculations, relaying instructions to the co-pilot, calmly, firmly keeping the team aligned. The captain watching with awe as a man he had underestimated moments before became the axis around which survival time stretched into an endless sequence of microseconds. Decisions flashing faster than the eye could follow, every adjustment a potential disaster avoided, a flicker of control regained, a fraction of altitude stabilized, a breath held collectively by hundreds of souls beyond the cockpit door. He felt The past and present collide, the memories of missions long ago, friends lost, comrades remembered with gratitude and sorrow, every life saved, every risk taken, every maneuver calculated for survival now fused into a singular purpose: keep them alive. Keep them safe, bring them home. The storm outside did not relent, thunder cracking like the sky itself had split open, lightning illuminating fleeting glimpses of the clouds like frozen waves, a violent ocean in the sky. The janitor moved like a conductor, guiding an invisible symphony, each lever, dial, and screen a note in the music of survival, his voice calm but commanding, guiding the co-pilot, instructing the captain, a gentle pressure on the yoke here, a subtle adjustment of throttle there, each motion deliberate, precise, perfect, honed by muscle memory and instinct. The plane began to stabilize slightly, a micro-victory, a glimmer of hope amidst chaos. Felt the weight of exhaustion pressing against him, the muscles aching, the mind fatigued. Yet he could not stop, could not rest. The lives depending on him demanded focus, demanded action. He thought of his son again, the small boy who had never understood the sacrifices his father had made, the long hours, the quiet labor, the invisible heroism. Now the boy unknowingly relying on the man's hidden skills to navigate a deadly storm, a promise to return safely, now a command guiding his every motion, the co-pilot following every subtle instruction, hands steadying, eyes focused, mirroring the calm authority radiating from a man he had thought was merely a janitor, but who was now a guardian angel in the sky, a man whose quiet life belied extraordinary talent and courage. Minutes stretched like hours, the storm relentless, yet he found pockets of calm in the chaos, focusing on instruments, control screens, adjusting altitude, speed, orientation, slight nudges, precise measured movements, a dance with physics and fate. And finally he began the descent, plotting a course through the storm clouds to a nearby airport, calculations running through his mind like a mantra: altitude, airspeed, angle, trajectory, fuel levels, adjustments, precise, flawless, coordinated with the co-pilot, the captain monitoring instruments, relief and disbelief etched across his face, the plane responding to each command as if recognizing the hand of mastery, guiding it through death itself. The cabin beyond the cockpit still tense, passengers unaware of the heroism at work, the whispers, murmurs, and prayers continuing, while the janitor orchestrated survival with the precision of a maestro, controlling an invisible symphony of danger, skill, and courage.